Hello everyone, welcome back to another Tempest Rising video. Today we are covering doctrines on the Tempest Dynasty side of things. Last time we covered the GDF doctrines. Super fun. Go check it out if you haven't already. This time I'll be skipping the preamble. If you're not sure what doctrines even are or how they differ between campaign, skirmish, multiplayer, all that, have a look at the previous video. So here we are with the Dynasty Doctrines. We have three branches: logistics, aggression, and security. Logistics is like buffs to your harvesters, plans, power economy, salvage vans, all that kind of stuff. Aggression is buffs for your units mostly. Security, bit of a flex category, lots of helpful bonuses across the board, a lot of distribution mode bonuses in particular. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, first off, we have Harvester Manufacturing. This makes your harvester's wheels a bit tankier and faster to rebuild. If you watch my harvesters compared video, you'll know that the wheels are the main weakness of a Tempest rig. And if you weren't aware, the harvester, the harvesters, like the four harvesters that go up from the rig, they double as the rig's wheels when you go to pack it up. So killing even one out of four of those harvesters means the rig will be stuck in place for a while. So this doctrine helps mitigate that weakness a little bit, but that said, this seems to be a pretty sad start to this branch. It's only really useful if you're being attacked, and personally, I think it would be nice if this doctrine got a little extra incentive. Next up, we have power management. This makes your plans cheaper and reduces the cooldown after a plan has been turned off. In case you didn't know, plans are the things in your construction yard. They provide global buffs depending on which you choose. We weren't able to do it in the demo, but you will be able to have all three plans active at once by having three separate Dynasty construction yards. So, depending on how much the discount ends up being, I could see this being fairly useful, but right now at 20%, this means you save 20 power on plans which cost 100 power, so this does not seem impactful at all at the moment. And the cooldown, I mean, I haven't really seen that come into play very much, at least in my own playthroughs, so still not convinced by this branch. Next is logistics improvements, which allows salvage centers to convert back into salvage vans and grants a global buff to units and vehicles that repair, an HP buff. And except for technicians, for some reason, don't really understand. Maybe they have enough HP already? I'm not sure. In case you didn't know, salvage vans, they can be deployed into salvage centers. This provides them with build radius and is probably the best way for Dynasty to expand across the map. It also makes their repair aura larger and opens up the ability to salvage vehicles. Potentially, this is a bit less important for Dynasty to do, like expanding across the map, since you can just send your Tempest rigs wherever. As opposed to GDF, you do need build radius before you can drop that refinery, but we'll see. It's, of course, it's probably nice to have more base building across the map in skirmish, but yeah, again, we'll see. But if you're like me and you really wanted to redeploy your salvage van for just any reason in the Dynasty demo mission, then this doctrine is for you. Probably my favorite doctrine of the branch, but then salvage vans are one of my favorite Dynasty units, so I am a bit biased. I just love that you can salvage vehicles with it, including enemy vehicles. Not sure how relevant that's going to be, but definitely super cool. Energetic enhancements. This allows power plants to generate some amount of their total power while in distribution mode. Normally, power plants basically shut off and stop contributing power to your grid while in distribution mode, so this just, gives you a bit of extra trickle in power while they're in distribution mode. So depending on what percentage this ends up being, I'm sure this could be helpful, but in multiplayer, it's going to come down to how much this doctrine costs to unlock and whether the later doctrines are worth it. Maybe you just pass through this one and you just happen to get this, but if you're going to try to unlock this exclusively for this bonus, then can you not just build another power plant with the cost of the doctrine? I'm not sure. So at the moment, seems a little bit underwhelming. Not a huge fan, but yeah, again, we'll see. Manpower, this is an interesting doctrine, causes vehicles to spawn infantry when they die so long as you have a plan running. So I'm not exactly sure if this is going to be one specific type of infantry per plan, with each plan having a specific infantry type, or is it just like one basic dynasty guard, so long as you have at least one plan. Either way, I'm also like curious how this will interact with the pillager. The pillager is the flame tank. It already spawns an igniter when it dies, so does this make it spawn extra infantry? Pretty cool. These sorts of spawn on death abilities tend to be quite strong in RTS games, generally speaking. It just adds a lot of meat to your army, and yeah, I think this doctrine has some pretty strong potential. Planned economies, last plan of the branch. It makes it so that each plan you have running will passively generate credits. This sounds super great. Of course, we don't know exactly how many credits this generates per plan, and that's really going to make or break this, right? So in skirmish or multiplayer, keep in mind that you'll have to pay credits to get this doctrine. So depending on how many plans, it could take a while to pay this one off, maybe not. I don't know. Total wait and see on this one. It's really make and break for this entire branch, in my opinion. It's sort of like the weakest branch of all in its current state, but it has the potential to be super strong if this is just a super strong capstone doctrine. So, like, we'll see. Okay, jumping into the aggression branch, we start out with body armor. Very simple buff to infantry health by 10%. So Dynasty already has a sizable advantage over GDF in its raw HP values across the board. So this just compounds that advantage by, some amount. 10% does seem a little bit underwhelming, but I'm sure this will be tuned to what is deemed appropriate. 10% is nice. I mean, I'll take 10% extra HP on my infantry for those early gaming engagements, I guess. I don't know. See how this one plays out. Next up, we have Trading Regimen. This allows units to gain veterancy 25% faster, and that seems pretty strong, honestly. Units do get a sizable DPS boost at each stage of veterancy, as well as a health boost and eventually self-repair, self-healing for infantry. So Dynasty vehicles, they're just very chunky to begin with, and Dynasty generally have great repair options, so I do expect veterancy in general to be important for Dynasty vehicles. That makes this doctrine, I think, very meaningful as well. Stockpiles grants 50% extra ammo to units that use ammo. This includes 2 air units and the Porcupine. So if you tried the Porcupine in the demo via the Stolen Plans Armory unlock on the GDF side, you'll know Porcupines have some damn good alpha strike potential, and this just compounds that. So this also applies to air units, which are going to be able to stay in the fray for longer before returning to rearm. Overall, I expect this to be a strong doctrine. Porcupines just feel like they're going to be really useful in a lot of situations, so I think this doctrine's pretty easy win. Empowered Dynamos. This causes units with Tempest Dynamos activated to receive 40% less damage from enemy units. Okay, in case you didn't know, Tempest Dynamos, this is an ability present on a number of Dynasty units which increases their attack speed significantly and also causes them to take damage over time. It's basically a little miniature distribution mode, except for units, not buildings. And in the demo, we did get access on the GDF side to Stolen Plans for the Assault Gunner, which does have this ability, but we weren't able to use Tempest Dynamos since it does require the Marshall Plan active in order to activate this ability. So in general, I think this is a strong as hell doctrine. Depending on where Tempest Dynamos ends up in terms of power level, I do expect this to be strong. Next up, we have Officers. This reduces Specialist cost by 25%, makes them deal 20% more DPS, and reduces their ability cooldowns by 25%. Not exactly sure why Commando is listed here separately, since as far as I'm aware, Commando is just another specialist, but we'll see. Maybe there have been some changes. So this does seem like a very strong doctrine, especially for those tier 3 specialists, which this might time out with a little more than the earlier specialists. So like things like the Physicist and the Commando, which also, by the way, look to have some super powerful active abilities. So it's going to be very helpful to be able to spam those abilities out more. Okay, to cap off the aggression tree, we have Leading the Charge. This provides a significant 20% increased health to vehicles. This just seems like a very Dynasty sort of upgrade, which further complements their already excellent health pools. So this one just seems downright simple, downright effective. There is some pretty decent synergy here too with the increased gains to veterancy. Maybe if you have some Vet 3 Voltaic tanks, which now, by the way, can also use Tempest Dynamos and take reduced damage. So they got buffed up earlier in this branch. They vet up faster, and now they're tanky as hell. Sounds super strong. And if they aren't Vet 3 yet, you do have cheaper access to the Line Officer Specialist. This can Vet 3 a vehicle instantly by taking command of it. And overall, probably my favorite branch for the Dynasty. Nothing super fancy or big-brained like the GDF Doctrines. This branch is just straight up simple, effective upgrades that I think really suit the pragmatic aesthetic of the Dynasty. Definitely my favorite branch. Let me know in the comments which one your favorite was. Okay, next up, starting out in the security branch, we have Ordinance Manufacturing. This increases explosive area of effects by 50%. Probably the best first pick of these three trees, since I do expect rocket troopers and porcupines to be sort of bread and butter units for the Dynasty. Strong doctrine, again, simple, effective, not too much to analyze here, but yeah, great doctrine. Extended life generators. This makes power plants deal 50% less damage to structures in distribution mode. Great doctrine. This means you can have distribution mode up for longer and overall reduce your repair costs. So power plants also gain some extra health and build radius, which is, I guess, just a nice little extra bonus. And overall, strong doctrine for distribution mode enjoyers. In campaign, you can couple this with improved capacitors from the armory for some real tough to crack defensive lines, such as the one that I set up here. I just love the look of this. It's so cool. Minefields makes all ground vehicles and turrets drop a mine when they die, and oh boy, does that sound brutal to go up against. Zero Space had this for a while, and he was so infuriating to play against, but over there, the mines were stronger, and they couldn't be diffused yet. So I don't think it's going to feel that oppressive here in Tempest Rising, but man, it's going to be difficult for your opponent to advance into your position after you lose some vehicles. So unless they're willing to take some losses themselves, or they take the time to defuse mines or find an alternate route, pretty sure this is going to be like crazy strong, but we'll see. Oversight. This provides AR units with extra health and sight range. Seems like a nice bonus, especially for any drop play with the hammer hand, but I'm not expecting this doctrine to really like work any miracles. It's probably more of a pass-through doctrine that you just happen to get as you proceed up through the tree. But we'll have to see. Maybe that extra health on the air units is going to really help Dynasty with air superiority. But again, I don't really see it being as helpful as the extra ammo for air units that we got like in the aggression branch. That said, I do like the sort of the aesthetic or the thematics of this, like of this security branch where you sort of have the air units that are doing oversight over your zone. You're establishing a security perimeter or something. So the thematics are really, really cool. We'll see how it actually plays out in terms of power level. Defensive operations. This makes all structures heal over time when not under attack, and gives all structures 25% more health. Very interesting here. The second bonus is that non-turret structures that die or are sold now dispense infantry. So in case you didn't notice it, this is a huge buff to distribution mode again. So together with the extended life generators that we got earlier, which reduce the damage our buildings take in distribution mode, well, now our structures just have more HP to begin with as well. So yeah, it's pretty strong buff. By the way, also when distribution mode ends, then the building will be repairing itself as well. So it's just overall a little bit easier to manage your distribution mode. So beyond all this, so if you're not aware, Dynasty tech works such that individual buildings are teched up to the next tier, and in a lot of cases they gain weaponry. So this means that Dynasty structures form sort of a core of your static defense line, and likely a teched up Dynasty base is going to be a pretty tough nut to crack. So this doctrine really is a big boon to that whole feel. The second bonus here is some pretty cool implications as well. Let's say it's late in the game, you're selling a bunch of buildings to do a massive push, and you get some free infantry out of it too. So that seems like it could be quite strong as well in some situations. Really like this one, and let's move on to the final one. Frontline construction. This makes MCVs and salvage vans cost 25% less, increases their move speed by 25% as well, and grants a bunch of buffs to build radius. Overall, this seems like a pretty underwhelming end to this otherwise pretty cool branch. We'll see how much this doctrine ends up costing, depending on how many MCVs and selfish bands you're building. Maybe it will pay for itself quickly. I can see this being more helpful in single player, where you don't have to wait until later in the mission for this to be unlocked, so it could give you a nice boost to your starting setup. Multiplayer, it seems like it might come a little too late for it to be relevant, but I also just could be totally wrong about that. So we'll see. And that, my friends, was my overview of the Dynasty Doctrines. I have to say I much prefer the GDF Doctrines, which have sort of a lot more going on in terms of synergy, but I also really do like the Aggression branch and most of the Security branch. In general, I think it really suits the Tempest Dynasty's aesthetic if their doctrines sort of err on the side of simplicity and pragmatism. That said, I think a few tweaks here and there would go a long way to making these doctrines feel a bit like way cooler, especially in the logistics branch. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe for more nerdy RTS shenanigans. Take care.